This segment is brought to you by Trapp Chevrolet. We're always on your side.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you're joining us, however you may be joining us. We appreciate it very, very much. Whenever we want updates from Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office, we get those from First Lieutenant Blake Tabor. Blake, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Keith.
All right, man. Appreciate it. We've got a lot to go over today.
Yes, we do.
Interestingly enough. All right, tell us first about the situation about some of these remains that we've finally been able to identify.
Absolutely. So, this one kind of came on the heels of the one that we recovered last week in the area of Alma Street. But again, not to be confused with the remains that were recovered in the Westwood area on the Village East subdivision back in May.
Okay.
So we originally released this in May 19th of 2025, where some remains were discovered in the 100 block of Westwood Drive. Ultimately, that information and remains were given to the FACES lab at the LSU laboratory, which is again, a unit that we have used on multiple occasions that help identify forensically people. And they can even provide faces for bone structure and different things in cases where someone is a true John Doe.
Wow.
Right? So ultimately, a lot of testing was done, and this came back in October 29th of this year, where the remains were identified as a Quang T. Lee. He was an Asian male, 72 years of age. You see him photographed here. We learned a lot about Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee served in a war where ultimately you see him, he's obviously missing an eye, where he ultimately took a round to the eye in battle, which explains the injury that he sustained there. So at this point, the location where we discovered Mr. Lee's remains is not directly connected to Mr. Lee.
Okay.
So at this point, we are making a big push to try to find any known family members or relatives of Mr. Lee that can come forward.
Okay.
Because ultimately, they have done a preliminary identification on him, but again, that needs to be confirmed through DNA testing before we can really concrete that identity. So at this point, that's what we're doing. We're trying to find any and all family members. If you know of anyone that is related to Mr. Lee, we ask that you reach out to the Sheriff's Office at 985-876-2500 as soon as possible.
Yeah. Or they can share that on the Bayou Crime Region, the Crime Stoppers Bayou Region, right?
Absolutely. They can always report that.
Right. 1-800-743-7433 as well. So we also have an arrest that was made about some people with some...
Yeah, this is an arrest that we're pretty proud of. So this one came to a head on Monday morning shortly after 8 a.m., where a victim discovered that his vehicle had been broken into. Subsequently, that was as a result of him getting some alerts on a debit card that he owned that was hitting at a local store on Lafayette Street.
Okay.
So, of course, he quickly realized through his bank account that he had not made those transactions. That led to him going outside and discovering the fact that his vehicle had been broken into, and, of course, his debit cards and credit cards were, in fact, missing.
Right.
At that point, we were able to obtain some video surveillance footage and not necessarily identify a suspect, but certainly describe one that was involved in this particular incident.
Right.
After we returned to the store where the transactions took place, again, we culminated that with video, linked the two, and we have the same suspect.
Wow.
Shortly thereafter, our Criminal Patrol Division ultimately located a male fitting that exact description walking in the area. Ultimately, he was identified and taken into custody as Reginald Clyde Morgan Jr. You see him photographed here. The disturbing part of all this was that when he was found, he was discovered to have illegal narcotics, drug paraphernalia, not one, but two loaded firearms on his person, along with property belonging to the victim, which, again, sort of seals the fate and lets the case know that we're where we need to be. Right. So, again, we bring him in for questioning where he adamantly denies any involvement in the burglaries that led to the possession of the property, denies being in possession of the property that we took from his person. So you can about imagine where this situation lends, right? Ultimately, he was arrested for simple burglary of a motor vehicle, 2 counts of attempted burglary of a motor vehicle, 2 counts of possession of a firearm by convicted felon, identity theft, possession of a stolen firearm, possession of methamphetamines, possession of drug paraphernalia, and also possession of a firearm in the presence of CDS. He's currently in jail on a $125,000 bond at our facility now.
Great job to you and your team. Let's talk a little bit about this ongoing child cybercrime investigation.
Yeah, again, so
as well.
this garnered a lot of interest, right, on our Facebook page.
Right.
This is going back to the arrest of an Angel Rodas, 25 years of age. He's a male from Gray. You see him photographed here. He was arrested initially last week for 66 counts of child pornography involving juveniles. Again, during that particular search warrant, a lot of forensic and digital evidence was secured in connection with that particular case. And again, as that particular information began to fall under further scrutiny and investigation, they located an additional 392 videos and photographs depicting prepubescent children ranging from 1 to 13 years of age involved in sexual intercourse. And if that is not disturbing enough, they also found 2 videos of people involved in sexual activity with animals, which is, beyond me to even fathom.
Right.
Ultimately, he was arrested on 392 counts of pornography involving juveniles and 2 counts of sexual abuse of an animal. He has currently been jailed on a $775,000 bond by local judges, and also went through a bond revocation where that first bond was removed. From him.
Gotcha. Very much. Blake, thank you so very much. I always appreciate the hard work that's being done and getting some of these people off the streets.
That need to be, absolutely.
Very cool. All right, guys, that'll do it for this particular segment, but don't go anywhere. We got a whole lot more right here on Bayou Time.
This segment was brought to you by Trap Chevrolet. We're always on your side.